Willkommen in einer frägens video. Welcome to yet another exciting video, in this case part 13 of my Star Trek TOS timeline series of videos. In this video I'll be discussing the Federation Starbases. First, the identified ones, and then how many may actually exist. Federation Starbases are mentioned in many episodes of Star Trek TOS, and exactly what they are is a bit difficult to pin down. Let's first look at all the starbases mentioned in Star Trek, the original series, of which there are only 9 named ones. Starbases are mentioned many more times, but with no identification number. The only starbase the Enterprise ever goes to in an episode is Starbase 11. In the episode A Court Martial, Starbase 11 is mentioned. The Enterprise uses the Starbase for repairs. Starbase 11 is also used to hear legal cases, and there is a Starbase Club, no doubt for recreation. Captain's Log, Stardate 2947.3. We have been through a severe ion storm. 1 crewman is dead, ship's damage is considerable. I have ordered a non-scheduled layover on Starbase 11 for repairs. A full report of damages was made to the commanding officer of Starbase 11, Commander Stone. Starbase 11 is also mentioned in the episode The Menagerie, Part 1 and Part 2. In this episode we learn the Starbase have extensive medical facilities. Starbase 11 also possesses at least 1 shuttlecraft. Starbase 200 is mentioned in the alternative factor, but the Enterprise never actually goes to it. The number 200 seems rather high, which implies there are at least 200 starbases. There are no pictures of this starbase, so it could be like Starbase 11, which means it's a planet with orbital facilities, or it could just be a space station, which may be why it has the number 200. As there is a specific name used for space stations in the TOS scripts, I feel it's the former. Starbase 9 is mentioned in Tomorrow is Yesterday. The Enterprise is going there to resupply. As the Enterprise never gets there, we do not have any pictures of this starbase, but it's probably similar to Starbase 11, except older and possibly more developed. The Enterprise ends up staying in a starbase, possibly Starbase 9, for 3 weeks for an overhaul of its computer. But this does not occur in this episode, and we do not get a view of this starbase. The internet is filled with pictures of space stations, which cannot be correct, as space stations are called space stations, as occurs with Deep Space Station K9. Thus, these pictures of space stations cannot be starbases, or the entire starbase anyway. In Space Seed, Starbase 12 is mentioned. When the Enterprise finds the Botany Bay, it takes it in tow and heads for Starbase 12. As we never arrive at the starbase, we get no images of what it looks like. I expect the same as Starbase 11. It's also mentioned in the episode Who Mourns for Adonis. The episode of This Side of Paradise mentions Starbase 27. We never go to this starbase, so no images are available. In this episode, survivors from a colony are transported to this starbase so they can then be redeployed to other colonies. In the episode This Side of Paradise and the episode The Deadly Years, Starbase 10 is mentioned. Once again, we never actually go to this starbase. The medical facilities on a starbase is apparently superior to a starship, but not by a great deal. In the episode Amok Time, an unnamed starbase is mentioned. It could be a new starbase or an existing one. Spock was going to surrender himself to the authorities at this starbase. In the Doomsday Machine, another unnamed starbase is mentioned. Kirk does indicate the starbase contains a justice and court system. Another unnamed starbase is mentioned in A Private Little War, but once again we never visit the starbase. If only they had included a number, we'd be able to track them more effectively. The episode The Immunity Syndrome mentions Starbase 6. Once again, we have no pictures of the starbase. Kirk mentions Starbase 6 can provide rest and recreation and is a planet, as well as containing pretty women. There will be orbital facilities at any starbase, but it's also clear that it consists of a habitable planet with a sizable Federation population and facilities on it. In the episode, The Enterprise Incident, we once again get another unnamed starbase. In the episode And the Children Shall Lead and the episode Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, we have a Starbase 4 mentioned. Starbase 4 has facilities for children. Starbase 4 also has a shuttle, or at least one shuttle. In the episode The Lights of Zetar, it mentions yet another unnamed starbase. Once again, starbases do have medical, treatment and recovery facilities. We get another unnamed starbase in The Way to Eden. In this reference, the starbases possess, once again, judicial and legal facilities. The episode Turnabout Intruder mentions Starbase Two. In this episode, the starbase has superior medical facilities. This is Starbase Two, which means it must be very close to Earth, must be very well developed and quite large. Anyway, that's my guess. Based on all these references, the first point to emphasise is a starbase is not a space station by itself. A starbase almost certainly has one or more space stations orbiting it, which provides docking and repair facilities for Federation starships. The actual starbase is an inhabited planet, which can have a wide range of facilities on the planet. The best way of viewing a starbase is it provides similar services to a Roman legionary fortress, except it would have obviously less soldiers in it. Perhaps a better analogy is the string of naval bases the British Empire set up across the world. Memory Alpha defines a starbase in the following manner. A starbase, less commonly called Starship Base or Command Base, was a permanent support facility operated by Starfleet, consisting of space stations, dry docks and or ground installations. Starbases were hubs of activity and could serve multiple military and civilian functions. By the time of Kirk's 5-year mission, Federation space is covered by an extensive network of starbases. There may even be 200 of them, possibly more, assuming Starbase 200 is the highest numbered starbase and the numbering is sequential. Some sources claim there are 700 colony planets or perhaps systems and 150 member planets in the Federation. If this is correct, 200 starbases seem like a large number of starbases, but certainly within the realms of the possible. At the end of Season 1, Kirk encounters 19 Federation colonies and 5 starbases, thus 200 starbases may actually be a viable number if this ratio goes through the entire Federation. This may mean many starbases could be rather small. Starbase 11 is most likely an example of a large starbase. Perhaps starbases up to Starbase 30 are all large, well-developed and expensive. Starbases of 100 or greater may be smaller, under construction and with less facilities. I feel all the low-numbered starbases were initially established more than 150 light-years from Earth and the others further away. It's unknown when starbases were first constructed. There is no doubt starbases were in place after the Earth-Romulan War in 2160, and these may be rather small affairs. When Earth fought the Romulans, Earth only had 3 significant planets, Earth, Mars and Alpha Centauri. Everything else was little more than a small colony planet with minimal military value. While starbases are repair facilities for starships, this would also be carried out by any heavily developed planet. Earth would have had starbase-like facilities at Alpha Centauri, Earth and Mars during the early Romulan Wars. The actual starbases would have been deployed in actual areas which lacked organic industrial capacity, basically like Roman forts in undeveloped areas of the empire. As Earth had built a string of armed bases guarding the neutral zone, I feel another project would be to create forward bases for any space fleet to use for repair and logistics purposes. The starbases were specific military forward positions used to defend space. It's possible that all the starbases were founded in the outer ring of Earth space in 2160, possibly all being more than 150 light-years from Earth when initially founded in 2160 or later. When I say all, I mean all of the ones that were actually founded in this time. Obviously, later starbases would have been built further out. I suspect a reasonable number were founded in the territories taken from the Romulans as well. This map here shows a possible endpoint after the Earth-Romulan War, with Earth actually taking a moderate chunk of Romulan space. When the Federation was formed in 2161, the starbases would have become Federation starbases, but I suspect the bulk of the starbases were all Earth-planned, built and manned, at least initially. While there were allies helping the Earth, primarily the Vulcans and a mysterious ally, the planet was probably on the other side of Earth from the Romulans, so would have no need to create their own starbases. As new threats appeared, the starbase construction would focus on these border areas. Thus, when the Klingons appeared, the Federation would have expanded their starbase network to include defending against the Klingons. As a result, I suspect any starbase network would be more extensive in the area facing the Romulans and Klingons. My TOS timeline does not include any other major threats, but I expect when the Cardassians appear, more starbases would be built facing them. This does not mean the other areas lack starbases, it's just their density would have been much less. Let's now look at how the starbases were built. The first step would be selecting the planet. I suspect an existing agricultural colony would have been selected, but if that was lacking, probably in most cases, the first step would be ensure adequate food supplies. This is a military base which needs to be self-sufficient in times of war, when shipping food around the galaxy is not easy or even possible. While not mentioned much in the TOS script, food may well have been critical for the Federation military. Just like nuclear submarines are forced to return to base to restock on food, even though they could have remained at sea, I suspect the same applies to starships and even starbases. Thus, ensuring food supply was always the number one priority when founding starbases, and colonies for that matter. Once the planet had developed a sufficient ability to produce food, the mass importation of space-based facilities would begin. Some may be spaced in, perhaps the smaller space stations, others would be assembled in orbit. This could take several years, so the transport of large facilities would have started at the same time the agricultural capacity of the planet was developed. It's unlikely a starbase would start with the industrial capacity to build these space-based facilities, and this may not even be a high priority, as industrial capacity in a high-threat location makes no military sense. There would have been a steady stream of manufactured products from the developed worlds which went to the starbases, as well as people to assemble the facilities on and off planet. This process, while taking a few years, would have not taken decades or a century, which would have been the case if this was being done to develop a fully populated civilian planet. Starbases, unlike colony planets, were fast-tracked in terms of development and initial population, although once in place and capable of fulfilling its mission, its growth would slow dramatically. A network of a dozen useful starbases could have been in place by 2170 or more likely 2180. As we know, there are going to be 200 starbases by 2264. We need to build an average of 2 per year at a minimum to get our Starbase 200 in place. It's likely as the starbases develop and its civilian population increases, it would eventually become a fully industrialised Federation member planet. This would especially be the case for the early starbases, as they would now be further away from any possible threat. The only exception would be in areas where the Federation border had not advanced, such as facing the Romulans or Klingons. However, this would have been organic growth. Once a starbase could fulfill its mission, there was no requirement to send colonists to it, but people may have gone there for the opportunities these starbases offered. One point I find interesting is, if the starbase home planet grows large enough, does it get a regular name and could it become a Federation member planet? I suspect the answer is yes, but within Starfleet it still may be referred to by its starbase numeric, as well as its normal name or new name as a full Federation member planet. And so we come to the end of Part 30, my Star Trek TOS timeline, in this case covering the Federation starbases. The episode scripts can be found using the URL shown. Alle guten Dinge, kommen zu einem Ende.